Today we have the honor of speaking to Umran Beba, Senior Vice President and Chief Diversity and Engagement Officer PepsiCo at her office here in Purchase, New York. Thanks again for joining us here today, Umran.
It's a pleasure to host you here.
So your role is Chief Diversity and Engagement Officer. Could you tell us about what engagement here stands for?
Absolutely. I think most of the titles you will see around historically, they have been diversity and inclusion. And which we had that title for many years for my previous colleagues here. But maybe 4 or 5 years ago, the title was changed to diversity and engagement, seeing it as another step in the journey of diversity. Mm-hmm. And if you look around today, you will also see other titles in the markets, which includes equity, some include, I think, belonging. So I think if you look at the whole area of diversity, first of all, bringing the different experiences, backgrounds, the visible and invisible differences to the workplace, representing our society, which means representing our consumers, customers, and communities. So that's the first part. The second part is really to include everybody in such a way that they can bring their true self to work, feel the belonging at the workplace, and have a high engagement to contribute to the success of the business, the growth, the innovation, and feel good, when they are in the workplace. And the third part of our strategy is also supporting our communities in such a way that engagement of our employees with the communities becomes such an integral part of our agenda.
Diversity is a subject which has been discussed for nearly 30 years academically now. In your personal experience, is there a significant gap between theory and practice when it comes to diversity and inclusion?
I mean, if you look at PepsiCo, because we are a consumer goods company, we have been very much into this space more than 30 years for sure. In 1940s, actually, in the US, specifically the African American consumers, of course, was a big part of the equation. And our company started recruiting actually salespeople to go and sell to those communities and who are coming from those communities. And then in 1960s, we have the first vice president of sales, African American, which was a first really in that era of, you can imagine the segregation history, etc. And then after that, we also had the first woman in the board of PepsiCo. We started having multicultural marketing. In the bonus design, there was diversity goals. So it has been part of our actually history since 1940s. So maybe yes, I mean, there is a lot of academic work in the last 30 years, especially the last 10 years. The topic is even becoming more, I think, widely discussed. But I mean, I feel like it has been part of PepsiCo's agenda because we are a consumer goods company, because we care about our communities. And by the way, I am with the company now for 25 years in December this year. And I always felt from the beginning that it was part of our DNA. And I think that's the reason I stayed for so long. My values and PepsiCo's values were so much in line. I think that gave me the energy to stay in the company that long.
How do you see progress in terms of speed and the quality of progress?
I mean, if you look at the global agenda, I talked very deeply about the women's agenda, but we have also LGBT plus agenda and also different abilities. We want to make sure that at the global level we have a better understanding what it means to represent those communities actually in our organizations and make sure that they have an inclusive work environment all around the globe. So at the global level, I think those are the three areas. And then at the local level, it really depends on where you are. In the US, for example, we have 10 different employee resource groups. Some of them are related to ethnicity, some of them are related to, for example, veterans. But at this point, we have very strong employee resource groups, and definitely we see the engagement of these groups are really stronger than non-members. So that's something we would like to encourage.
Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Yes, sure. I was part of the World Economic Forum's Future Council about future of jobs in the last couple of years, and then that council actually converted into a new topic called future of work, gender, and also education, because they are all related. As you can imagine, if you look at the future of jobs, we see there is going to be a decrease in certain job families and increase in other families. There is always a connection to the STEM skills. Unfortunately, we don't have enough women in the STEM categories, for example. And if these jobs are increasing, and if you don't have already enough women in the STEM jobs, there will be a negative impact. We want to make sure that STEM is an area where we invest and support. Therefore, for example, we are partnering with STEM Connector Million Women Mentors Program, which is basically connecting with the young, can be students, can be early professionals, to attract women to STEM, to keep them in the STEM fields, and then in the future of work, you see more of the women in the STEM functions. So Million Women Mentors Program is actually a program that PepsiCo is supporting, and in the US we have more than 500 mentors. We are working with high school students, early career professionals in our organization and outside. And globally now this initiative is growing into Ireland, UK, India, soon in Pakistan, Saudi Arabia. It's becoming a global initiative, and we are part of the major supporters and investors in this program. And we would like to see more companies, more governments, more states joining actually the movement.
I'd like to ask about where diversity and inclusion stands for your organization from a business perspective, and how does it serve the business of your company?
I mean, as I mentioned, given the history and the priorities we have, at this point we have a global agenda. We have also a local agenda, very much coming from the grassroots of our organization. Mm-hmm. At the global level, we have external commitments, our people goals, we call them our sustainability people goals. First of all, I think representation of women globally is one of the main focus areas. Therefore, gender parity by 2025 is our goal number one in the management roles. The second, again, externally committed goal is about pay equity around the globe, men and women, but also in the United States, it's about white, non-white communities. We want to make sure the pay equity is there and sustained. And the third area is the commitment behind women's empowerment around the globe. $100 million of investment will be made by the PepsiCo Foundation and our businesses around the globe to support women's empowerment in three areas. One is women farmers. We have a lot of women in agriculture. We want to make sure we support them. Women founders. These are the women entrepreneurs in the food system. And the third area is the workforce readiness of girls and young women who are getting ready to be in the workplace.
A personal point of interest for me is art. You mentioned in a previous interview, and you mentioned just now also, that you see art as a form of diversity.
I mean, the connection of art to cultures, I think to design thinking, and also the way people express themselves. It's a great language, actually, especially when you need more empathy, you need more connection, you need more collaboration. I think art can be really bringing people together.
Because the concept of diversity is getting broader and broader.
Yes.
Especially the new generations are identifying themselves in ways that we hadn't known before. So what does your company do in this field?
Green is a good example, you know. So it's an interest group, but they identify themselves with that purpose and get together as a network, and deliver results, which is actually giving them, I think, a higher engagement, higher belonging related to their work and company. So I think more and more we are going to see beyond traditional definitions of diversity, some of these interest groups, but also I think intersectionality, where people may not be just identified with one definition, but they can have 3, 4, 5 different backgrounds or differences coming together and creating a unique person. And I think that's the beauty of, I think, diversity. Everybody is unique.
What about the rest of the organization? How do you facilitate motivation on the subject through the organization in general?
We have a great program every year which is called Harvey Russell Awards for Diversity and Inclusion. And in those award ceremonies, we see, you know, different groups, individuals from US, from Latin America, Asia, Middle East, Europe, bringing all these best practices on the stage. And we of course select the best of the best. But then they become the best practices around the globe, and people learn very quickly from each other, and they would like to go and adopt it. So the disciplined way, but also there is the grassroots way, and there is also the sharing and making it even better and bigger. As you know, these are the ways of, I think, the moving the culture forward. But recently, with our new vision of winning with purpose, and the behaviors of PepsiCo way, I think people are also very engaged in terms of creating a difference, and then making sure that we are a faster, stronger, and a better organization with the power of the best talent and the best diverse talent. And then celebrating the success for them is actually very natural. In
a previous interview, you mentioned reskilling and upskilling of talent from a diversity and inclusion point of view as an emergency. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Yes, sure. I was part of the World Economic Forum's Future Council about future of jobs in the last couple of years, and then that council actually converted into a new topic called future of work, gender, and also education, because they are all related. As you can imagine, if you look at the future of jobs, we see there is going to be a decrease in certain job families and increase in other families. So in terms of decrease, we see administrative roles will go down, some of the manufacturing roles, of course, will decrease.
Should there be a limit to diversity in an organization? Organizations also need uniformity to an extent.
I think it's more about the same values. I mean, I understand what you mean. You know, you can get all these different perspectives and then you don't get results, right? I mean, that can be the kind of the risk. But at the end of the day, it's about having a vision, mission, values, behaviors, and then a language in the organization. I think if you have that, then, I mean, that's the power of, I think, the culture and the managers to bring that diversity out in a positive way to create growth and innovation. Otherwise, yes, it can be chaos for sure. You don't want to get there.
Finally, what kind of legacy would you like to leave one day?
Yeah, I mean, I have been many years in the business world, and I know that I think focusing on growth. If you are in business, focusing on growth, growing businesses, growing countries, and growing talent, and working with your communities, I believe, to have a great impact on the communities is important. So I would say throughout the years I have been in business, I think that was my focus, you know, being a global leader, having a global impact, growing businesses and people.
Umran, thanks a lot for joining us today and taking part in our Women and Leadership video series. It has been very engaging and a great pleasure talking to you.
Thank you for the opportunity.